Public education in America has long been under attack, but now there's disaster schooling, a new pilot program born from an unforgiving virus and COVID-19. The pandemic has got big-moneyed interests who've been trying to privatize education for years, now licking their chops. I'm Francesca Fiorentini, and in this episode of Newsbroke, we're looking at how the coronavirus is being used to dismantle public education, and who's fighting back. Back to school. In Trump's pandemic, it's not a season, it's an order.
We want to reopen the schools, so we're very much going to put pressure on governors and everybody else to open the schools.
Opening up our schools again is the best thing for our kids.
There's nothing in the data that suggests that kids being in school is in any way dangerous.
Well, that was July, when experts and anyone paying attention except Trump's death cult knew what going back to school in a pandemic would mean by September.
We began tonight with the death of a local school teacher from complications from the coronavirus.
A teacher at Bayport High School has died from coronavirus complications.
We have learned of at least 6 teachers who have died just as schools reopened.
Well, that escalated predictably. Yeah, the last thing underpaid, under-resourced teachers needed was for snot rockets to become as deadly as actual rockets. But schools and teachers aren't just at risk for COVID, because the very same people pushing for schools to reopen have also been driving the dismantling of public schools nationwide for years through their push to privatize education. And with COVID-19, those private interests are hoping for a windfall. Just listen to Education Secretary Betsy DeVos earlier this year.
This really is a moment for transformation, particularly in K-12 education.
Sounds harmless enough. And while we could take Betsy DeVos at face value when she says she wants to transform K-12 education, that would be kind of like taking John Wayne Gacy at face value when he shows up to your house in a clown suit and wants to see the birthday boy. Don't let him in! And if you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, it's cool. Just think, white guy, 3 names, yep, he's a serial killer. So what kind of transformation is DeVos actually talking about? It's the kind that she, her husband, and the DeVos family, all billionaires, have been investing in and lobbying around for years, diverting taxpayer money away from public schools and towards schemes like school vouchers, charter schools, and online education in a game the 1% plays called What's Left to Steal? Da, da, da. Da, da, da. So how do they do it? Well, take school vouchers, something the DeVosses have spent years and millions of dollars promoting. School voucher programs exist in 29 states, either in the form of tax credits or direct payments to families. They were initially designed to help low-income kids get out of the public school system and into the private one, but they've become a way of funneling public money into private and religious schools. So when a public school loses a kid to the voucher program, so too goes public funding. And in some states, vouchers aren't based on income, so even wealthy families can get a voucher. Vouchers are kind of like golden tickets to Willy Wonka's factory, only all the kids are Augustus Gloop. You didn't really need a lifetime supply of chocolate, did you, Gloop? Get a job, Gloop. Sorry. But are students doing better academically with vouchers? Multiple studies of voucher programs in Florida, Ohio, Indiana, Louisiana, and DC show little evidence that students enrolled in them have actually done better academically. Then there's charter schools, which are about 7% of American schools and growing. They're a similar public money-guzzling arrangement supported by Republicans and Democrats alike. They're publicly funded but privately run. Charter schools don't have to obey school district rules, district curriculum, can hire teachers without union contracts, and can cherry-pick students, which has led to discrimination. Betsy herself has been called an architect of Detroit's charter school system, and her husband, Dick DeVos, has invested in or founded a number of charter schools himself. Other dynastic oligarchs have invested in charter schools too, from the Gates to the Waltons to the Kochs. That's probably because their charter school investments are also tax write-offs. Wealth, the gift that keeps on grifting. They've often gotten help from the union-hating bill mill ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, to introduce state laws around what they call school choice. Yes, school choice. The latest conservative phraseology that proves that the right is pro-choice when it comes to sending your kid to private Catholic schools, but anti-choice if they get pregnant there, which they will because it's a Catholic school, and sex ed is just a nun teaching you how to poke a hole in a condom by smacking it with a ruler. Without much oversight, it's also no wonder why so many charter school heads around the country have been charged with tax fraud, overinflating attendance, and embezzlement.
Attorneys say money that was supposed to benefit the school paid for a lavish lifestyle.
How he used it for facelifts, cruises.
He used the money to buy expensive cars like a Maserati, boats, and a 10,000 square foot home.
Prosecutors say they had evidence to show Trombetta shuffled nearly $1 million from education companies. Money prosecutors say should have gone for educating children.
I don't know, I feel like there's a pretty big educational lesson there. If a charter school fails to educate you properly, just invest in a charter school. Now with COVID, well-funded private and charter schools have had an easier time complying with health standards. These schools often have the privilege of smaller class sizes, more outdoor space to socially distance, and money for things like PPE and disinfectant. Plus, in some places, private schools simply do not have to comply with local health orders. And all that has led Trump to use public schools' inability to do the same and their unwillingness to reopen recklessly as a way to threaten them.
If schools do not reopen, the funding should go to parents to send their child to public, private, charter, religious, or homeschool of their choice. If the school is closed, the money should follow the student.
Yeah, the money should follow the students, and the students should follow the private schools that will take the money and send it back to my wealthy friends. Oops, I forgot to stop the sentence earlier. Are they still looking?
With COVID-19, DeVos has been making sure the money is coming her way and the way of private education interests. Congress allotted $30 billion in the coronavirus economic stimulus package for struggling schools from K through college. And yet, she funneled $180 million of it toward what she's calling microgrants to help families pay for tuition to private schools, which sounds a whole lot like vouchers. When the department was called out for using emergency funding to bolster private education, the education department called it absurd. But then DeVos turned around and said this in a radio interview with Cardinal Timothy Dolan.
But stage two, I understand, Secretary DeVos, is a particularly passionate dream of yours. Namely, let's utilize this particular crisis to ensure that justice is finally done to our kids and the parents who choose to send them to faith-based schools. Am I correct in understanding what your agenda is?
Yes, absolutely.
Damn, I know he's a priest, Betsy, but you might not want to confess that much. Of course she's using this crisis. It's what the rich do when there is a crisis. What author Naomi Klein coined as the shock doctrine, utilizing a natural disaster, a military coup, or a pandemic as grounds to radically change a sector of society in favor of the wealthy. And like clockwork, parents who can afford to are turning to private schools.
Private schools around New York State applications have more than doubled this spring and summer from last year.
Private schools are different. The typical small classes will be even smaller this year. They also have another advantage: technology.
Look, I get it. Parents are at their wits' end, okay? They didn't sign up to be parents to be surrounded by their children 24/7. They signed up to have free tech support as they age. But on the flip side, just look at what's happened to some public schools.
Yellow water, dead roaches, and dusty desks. That's how teachers at this Crown Heights school for children with special needs were welcomed back Tuesday. So after finding bathrooms lacked soap and promised PPE was not available, teachers worked outside.
What does it say about how we value public schools in America when not even the roaches can survive them? And he was doing so well. He was homecoming king. Dismantling public education during a pandemic is also taking the form of online learning. And I'm not talking about public schools moving to Zoom, which has effectively turned the chat window into a bathroom stall.
No, Mark, the answer isn't 8 == capital D tilde. I know what that means.
I'm talking about the push to permanently move K through 12 online. Remember Dick DeVos? The company he's invested in is called K-12 Inc. The K stands for kleptocracy. K-12 Inc. runs dozens of for-profit online schooling programs, and it's worked with ALEC to lobby legislators in 5 states into introducing the Virtual Public Schools Act, which once again siphons money from public schools into these private ventures. The CEO of K-12 Inc. made $9.8 million in 2019. May I remind you, public school teachers, on the other hand, make an average of $60,000 a year. But Who needs money when you have handwritten Valentine's Day cards from your class? Mark! But is online learning more effective, more efficient? Well, in the spirit of online learning, let me ask Google. Google is, new Instagram follower. Oh, hello. No, you're a foreign agent. No. Despite applications to K-12 Inc. programs being up 60% under COVID, the quality is far behind in-person teaching. A 2016 investigation found that fewer than half of the students who enroll in K-12 Inc.'s online high schools earn diplomas, and almost none of them are qualified to attend the state's public universities. Another study found that students who attended online charter schools lagged behind traditional public school students by 72 days in reading and 180 days in math. Fortunately, they'll never learn enough math to know just how behind they are. And if DeVos's disaster schooling plans weren't obvious enough, the Department of Education has said game on to standardized testing this fall. Why is continuing with testing during a pandemic so cruel? Because over the years, test results have become an outsized factor in how public schools are assessed, whether they're labeled as failing, and whether they could close altogether.
The controversy over standardized testing is causing tension between federal and local educators who are saying that now is not the time to judge schools or students through tests.
Right now, in the middle of all this, I'm not sure how you can test a kid and say this is where this kid is.
Yeah, you want to know where the kid is? In a blanket fort, working on his second box of fruit roll-ups while thinking about the end of the world at age 8. And by the way, students at private and charter schools generally do score higher on tests due to all kinds of advantages, including the fact that these schools get to handpick higher performing students. So when those test scores inevitably come back higher, DeVos has one more reason to keep gutting public schools in favor of her family's business. The real problem with this disaster schooling isn't just that it's getting the 1% rich, or is rife with corruption, or that it doesn't actually do a better job of education than in-person public schools do. It's that it also cuts poor students and largely students of color out of the equation, something the pandemic has only made worse. Studies have shown the average loss in learning for Black and Hispanic students is far more than for white ones. But DeVos's dream scenario does have some roadblocks. When she tried to add $1 billion to the voucher system, Congress struck it down. When she tried to siphon off even more pandemic relief money to private schools, a judge struck that down. And hopefully this November, voters will strike her administration down entirely. And most importantly, teachers know what's up. In the last few years, they've been organizing through teachers' unions across their districts and in their communities to demand the respect, support, and resources they deserve. And at least one group of Americans understands how valuable they are.
We want you to know how much you impact our lives.
And I appreciate you, and I miss you very much.
I miss my teacher because she's really thoughtful and caring. And for Valentine's Day, she let us have root beer floats and a sundae.
You're still very important to us in our life, even if we don't see you.
I'm fine. I'm fine. DeVos might not want public education to survive the pandemic, but parents, teachers, and especially children need it to. If only for the root beer floats. Thank you so much for watching Newsbroke. Make sure to share this video, like it, and subscribe to AJ Plus on all the platforms. And let me know in the comments what your experience with virtual learning has been. Are you in school? Do you have kids in school? Relatives in school? Is everyone just wearing PJs the whole time? I know I would be. You can't prove I'm wearing pants right now. Let me know, and we'll see you next week.